Yo, what is up guys, and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to be doing a little you know what I'm saying? A little crafts project. And that project is going to be that we are going to make concrete weight plates. Now the reason we're going to be making these weight plates is because it is quarantine currently where I am, and every single weight on the market is around $2 to $3 per pound. Which is absurd because I want around 450 pounds worth of weight, which would end up being 900 to 1,350 Canadian dollars. However, making the plates out of concrete is going to bring that price down to 28 cents per pound, which is around 124 Canadian dollars. So making my weight plates out of concrete is going to bring the price per pound down by tenfold, which is insane to think of. Now, not only is this a cost-effective way to make weight plates, it's also a very fun project. So if you're thinking of getting your kids into weightlifting or your loved ones into weightlifting, or you're just thinking of getting them into little projects like this would be a very nice and fun way to get them introduced into this kind of stuff, as well as being a nice cheap way to set up an entire home gym during quarantine, because if you're like me, you'd rather be broke and shredded than slightly less broke and not at all shredded. So getting right into the video, I'm going to be giving you guys a little ingredients list here that'll be explaining all the parts you need and how much they cost and how you're going to make this the most cost-effective way to make the concrete plates. I am also going to be breaking down every single step into as much detail as possible to make sure that you guys get the perfect concrete weight plate. All right, so the first step into making the perfect concrete weight plate is you're going to want to measure and cut your PVC pipe. Now, in my case, with a 13-inch diameter mold, I am going to need to cut around 3.5 inches of PVC pipe in order to get 35 pounds of concrete. Now you're going to want to cut the PVC pipe straight because we're going to glue the PVC pipe to the bottom of your mold so that no concrete gets under the PVC pipe once you pour the concrete in. Now, if you're doing this on a budget, the best way to get a straight cut is to get a box from anywhere. You're going to then want to saw as straight as possible into the box, or you can simply go to the outside of the box and push your saw against the edge. And this should give you a straight cut. Now, luckily, I didn't have to do this step because my cherished loved ones gave me this box and saw that they already made themselves. So thank you very much. Or you could even skip this step if you happen to buy a PVC cutter, which I would recommend if you have the money. It's only $40. It makes sure every cut is straight, doesn't leave a mess, and it cuts things in seconds. However, if you want to save as much as possible, this is the best way to do so. Also, as you can see, cutting things with a saw will make a mess, as previously mentioned. So I would recommend doing this outside, especially since you're dealing with concrete, and the air can help make sure that you don't get any concrete poisoning. However, I'm doing it inside, but whether or not you are going to do it outside or inside, I would 100% recommend wearing a mask if you're going to cut anything with the saw, including the PVC pipe, or if you're going to be pouring the concrete. Now, this time around, I forgot to wear my mask while cutting the PVC pipe. However, I will be wearing it next time because I do want to live. Or do I? Also, if you're going to be doing it inside, I'd recommend having a vacuum. So if you want to know the exact height that your PVC pipe is going to be, you're going to need to make a few test plates of all the weights that you want, and then you are going to cut accordingly. If you're going to make test plates, I'd recommend starting with the lowest weight you're going to make, which in my case is 5 pounds. However, I did not start by making 5 pounds. I started by making 35 because I'm impatient. And either way, I was pretty confident in my ability, and I overshot the amount of concrete I put into the plates, which made both plates 38 pounds rather than 35. But as my dad always used to say, you're a failure, son, and no one will ever love you. Sorry, that was the other thing he used to say. What I meant was, it's better to have and not need. That's the... So anyways, on to the second step. So once you've cut your PVC pipe as straight as possible on both sides, you're gonna go on to the next step, which is to glue the PVC pipe to your mold. So you're gonna wanna put it as centered as possible. You're gonna wanna use the Krazy Glue for this, and you could test how strong the Krazy Glue is by if you could pick up the mold by the PVC pipe. Now, as you can see, I already Krazy glued the PVC pipe to the mold, and I did in fact film that. However, I got Krazy Glue all over my fingers, and I cannot stress this enough. If you get Krazy Glue on any part of your body, run to the sink and wash it off as fast as possible. Scrub it as hard as possible. You do not want this thing drying on your skin, because as the name implies, the glue is actually fucking crazy. It's insane. It dries in seconds, and it's the most impossible thing to get off. Luckily, I had a torture device, so I was able to scrape the glue off as best as possible, and I'm recovering, don't worry. So you learn from your mistakes, and my lesson from that mistake is to let you guys know never to use Krazy Glue without gloves, without a mask as well, do not get it in your mouth, and without goggles or glasses. And once you're done with the Krazy Glue, put it back in the little vial, because it's scary. It's scary. We don't want this thing out and about, okay, gluing things. I'd also like to add an optional part to the second step, which is to kind of customize the inside of the mold. This is for any of you more artsy people. If you don't really care about customization, you could go ahead and skip this. I have timestamps in the description, but if you do want to learn how to customize your mold, it is pretty simple. So I went to the dollar store and picked up this 3D lettering, and with this I can label the weight that I'm going to be making. So since I'm going to be making a 35-pound plate, I take a 3, I take a 5, then I take an L, B, and an S for pounds. Now, since the 3D lettering is actually made for this, by the way, follow me on Instagram at Liam__lifts_. There are little prongs on the back of the lettering. I don't know if you can really tell, so that they go in. However, we're going to want to remove that. So we are going to take scissors or any other cutting thing and quickly remove that from the back of the numbers. Or you can simply get some other number or lettering from maybe a craft store in whatever fonts you want for your plate. Ooh, oh my God, that shit just shot me. Oh my God, the numbers have turned violent. Surprised I'm still alive, really. All right, so now on to the kind of complicated part. So as you can see from the front of the mold, the letters are going left to right. However, from the back, they are going right to left. So when placing your 3D numbers and lettering, you're going to want to make them read from right to left rather than left to right, so that once the mold is done, you can read it left to right. So once you are done, it is going to look like this. The 35 again is going to be going right to left. And before you place the concrete, you are going to want to try and shimmy the numbers. If they don't move at all after 1 minute of placing the Krazy Glue, then you know you did your job properly. So once you're done gluing the PVC pipe and any other addition you would like to make to the mold, you are going to want to use your plant cutter to cut your wire mesh. Now, when doing this step, I would recommend that you wear gloves, because once you start cutting the wire mesh, it can get sharp on the edges. And of course, you don't want to scratch your hands. And I recommend that you do this step now, because you are going to want to measure how long and thick the wire mesh cut should be before you enter the concrete in the mold. And then you're going to want to place it in the mold just to be sure it can go on all 4 sides like so. So once you're sure that it can be placed like that, then you are done with this step and it's on to the next step. So my recommendation for making the proper amount of concrete mix is to pour the same weight of dry concrete as the weight you want your plate to be. Now, once you start adding water, it's going to obviously increase the weight, and you might have more weight than you need for your plate. However, it's better, again, to have more concrete than to have too little. So depending on what concrete you have, it will tell you the proportions at which you would need to mix your concrete. In my case, I have a 66-pound bag that says for the entire bag, I would need around 3 liters of water mixed with the dry concrete mix. So I'm gonna pour around 1.5 liters of water into the bucket first, and then I'm going to pour around 35 pounds of dry concrete mix since I am shooting for a 35-pound plate. So as you can see, I poured 37 pounds of concrete mixed with water. And now it is time to mix. You're gonna wanna mix until you get a slushy consistency, slightly more towards the watery side. And I'll show you guys what that looks like. You use the gardening shovel to mix. It shouldn't be too hard. It usually takes me around 10 minutes. However, this time around, I am going to be using a drill instead. Also, always make sure to wear a mask and gloves throughout the entire process. All right, so once you're done mixing, it should be a nice slushy consistency, like so. And that is how you know you are finished. So once you're done getting it to a slush more on the liquidy side, we are going to go on to the next step, which is to apply a lubricant coating to your mold. Now, this step isn't 100% necessary. However, I would recommend it because I tried without a lubricant and it was quite difficult to get the finished plate out of the mold. And that was only after around 30 hours. So imagine if you do the complete 48, how difficult it would be. So you're not gonna want to spray too much. You're gonna wanna try and get it everywhere though, and try not to make it puddle. So once you are sure there is a nice thin layer of lubricant, you're gonna go on to the next step, which is placing the concrete into the mold. Again, wear gloves and a mask. I've done this quite a few times, so I don't think I need to go put on gloves again, but I will be wearing my mask. And my biggest tips for placing concrete in the mold is going to be to make sure that you place it slowly. In case your adhesive didn't work as well as possible, you're going to want to place all of the concrete as slow as possible and steadily as possible to make sure that it doesn't knock over the PVC pipe or anything else you glued to the center of the mold, and also to make sure there are as few air bubbles as possible. So once you believe you've placed half the mold's worth of concrete, you're going to want to shimmy it around and make sure that all of the air bubbles escape to allow as smooth of a finished product on the bottom of the mold, and also to kind of just get of any rigidity or imperfections inside of the concrete or on any side of the mold, and allow for a more solid product to last you longer. So once you believe you have shimmied half of the mold enough to get most, if not all, of the air bubbles out, it is on to the next step, which is to either tap the sides to also help make sure all the air bubbles come out, or if you have something that vibrates, I'm using a razor. You can lightly kind of go around the side to kind of just make sure everything's in place, and you do that also for around 5 minutes. All right, so once you believe you are done with getting all of the air bubbles and imperfections out of the mold, you're going to want to move on to the next step, which is placing the already cut and measured wire mesh in all 4 sides of the plate. So you're going to want to place them down and just kind of shimmy them into the concrete best as possible. Now you're going to want to wear gloves because some concrete does get on your hands, and you do not want concrete to dry on your skin because it may cause skin issues. However, as you can see, I give no shits. So once you've completed all the previous steps, you're going to want to place the mold onto a scale just to make sure that your weight turns out as accurate as possible to the weight you are shooting for. And again, you're going to want to add the rest of the concrete slowly just to make sure that it's only around 1 to 2 pounds above the weight you want your plate to be. So for me, I am shooting for a 37-pound total. So as you can see there, I got my concrete to 37.2 pounds, which is around exactly what I was shooting for. So now all that's left to do is to, again, get the air bubbles out to the best of your ability and to smooth out the surface to the best of your ability, like so. So the proper technique to smooth out the surface is to kind of slant the garden pattern and only let one side touch. And then you could even kind of just spin the concrete around. But as you can see, after shimmying it, it's like kind of letting the rocks rise, which is what the vibration step is for. I mean, you can hit the sides and it'll go back in, as you could see. So now it is on to the last step, which is the hardest step. Not gonna lie, hardest for me at least. And that is to let the concrete sit for 24 to 48 hours. I would 100% recommend 48 hours, since 24, depending on what dry concrete mix you get, won't be enough to properly solidify. However, I do know that fast acting mortar mix, I think it's called, only takes about an hour to cure, and then you could take it out of the mold, which leaves you more time to make more plates if you only happen to have one mold like myself. But if you don't want to spend too much on tons of bags of concrete, you could just buy the $5 one like I buy and just wait 24 to 48 hours per plate. And usually I take it out before the 48-hour mark because I'm too impatient, and every time I leave my room it's just taunting me. So I think you'd be pretty good just to leave it around 30 hours, 36 hours. It usually ends up pretty good. And so yeah, that is the end of the video. If you liked the video and found the information useful, please leave a like, subscribe, share the video, comment, hit that bell notification, and click on one of my other videos up here. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys next time. Peace.